In this video I'm going to show you how you can insert elastic into your crochet, and I'm using two different kinds of elastic. I'm using this elastic thread, and then I have this 1.5 centimeter wide elastic band. So let's say we want to insert this into our round. So this could be for a skirt or something where we want the waist to be tighter. So we want the elastic to be smaller than the crochet. This measures about 44 around. So I'm going to subtract 10 centimeters. So that would be 34 if I subtracted 10 centimeters. It depends on what kind of project you're making. But let's just say 34. So what I do is I shape a tube, and it has to be straight, so we don't want this to twist. And then I take some thread and a needle, and then we're just gonna sew up and down through the elastic. Don't worry if it's not pretty, because you won't be able to see it anyways. So the most important thing is that you just do it a few times to make sure that it is secure and it doesn't come undone. So when we create a circle like this, this could also be done with the elastic thread. So I could just make a circle and then tie a knot and then use that instead. I've done that as well. So when we have a piece of elastic like this and we want this to be inserted into our crochet, I'm gonna look at the wideness of the elastic. So the wider it is, the taller my stitches has to be. So this one is about half the size of these double crochet stitches. So I think I'm gonna make half double crochet. So I just start by chaining one, and then I just place the elastic behind my row, behind my stitches. Then I just go into the first stitch as I normally would to make my half double crochet, and then I just make sure to go behind the elastic. And I don't do it too tightly here at first, because I don't want to twist the elastic. So just see if it fits behind this stitch. And it looks like this is big enough for the elastic. So I just do this again. Make sure the elastic is behind me. If it starts to twist, you can always pull on each side of it. When we get closer to the beginning, what we can do is make sure that the elastic is straight and not twisted. And here it looks like it's twisted somehow. So we need to straighten it by pulling it. And then we need to sort of pull the stitches gently over the elastic and do it sort of evenly all around the round. Obviously, the smaller the stitches or the smaller the hook, the more invisible the elastic will be. So now I just make sure that the last piece matches the piece of the elastic so it doesn't stick out. And then we make the last stitches here. So I finish with one slip stitch into my first half double crochet to connect the round, and this is it. And obviously you can see the elastic through. I wouldn't use a dark yarn with a white elastic. You can also choose to just make the elastic smaller, thereby the stitches will be more ruffled and more tight, and that way it will cover the elastic more. And then you can also choose to sort of spread out the stitches and then just use some yarn or thread or something and then just sew up and down through the stitches and through the elastic, maybe 2 or 4 places to keep the elastic in place. If you want, you don't have to. So when we stretch it, it's very visible, and when it's like that, it's not as visible. I want to show you how you can insert elastic just over either a row or just a few stitches. We want to figure out the space where we want to insert the elastic. So let's say I want to insert it over 15 stitches. 1, 2. The piece we want to insert the elastic on measures 9 centimeters. So my elastic has to measure 9 in total. So I'll just take 10 or 11 just to have some extra length so I can tie a knot. So I fold it and I tie a double knot at the end. So we want 4.5 from the knot. So it looks about right. So here we have again a ring. So if this was a bigger size ring, I could also use this as I've done with the other elastic. So this works the exact same way. I could just place this behind my stitches and then just crochet around the ring. But now we want to insert this elastic just over a few stitches. First of all, I'm just going to cut off the excess elastic so it's not too visible. So I've made my first chain here, and to make it easy for myself, I'm going to make single crochet stitches. So first of all, I go into my first stitch here to make my single crochet. And then I'm gonna go into the elastic as well. And then I make my single crochet. So I'm crocheting around the elastic like that. So now I have the elastic in place. I'm just gonna turn it so the knot is hiding a little bit in there, so this way it doesn't go anywhere. Here we just take the elastic, you can sort of hold it onto the crochet like that, and then you just imagine that the 2 strands is just 1 strand of elastic that you're gonna crochet around. So you just make your single crochet stitch and make sure that the elastic is behind you. This can be a little bit tricky because if the elastic is very short like mine, it's quickly gonna be sucked into the stitches. If you have a stitch marker, you can use that. I think I'm just gonna use this one and find the last stitch I'm gonna crochet on. This is my last stitch, and I just take the elastic so that it doesn't disappear into my stitches. And now I just go around the elastic. So you're just gonna crochet around it as if it was 1 piece of elastic. Now it's almost gone, so I need to pull it. This is the thing about elastic, it's meant to be pulled, so you need to stretch it here over the last stitches. So here, when we are at the last stitch where the safety pin is, you go into the stitch and then you go into the ring of the elastic, so between the 2 pieces of elastic. Okay, and then you make the last single crochet. And now we can remove the safety pin. Okay, so now, as you can see, we have secured the elastic in both sides of the row on this side, and that way there's just one area of our round that is sort of tightened. As you can see on this dress I've made, this is how I created a puff sleeve, just with a regular round of double crochet stitches. I just inserted some elastic thread, so I just tied a knot on some thread in a round and then just crocheted around the elastic thread, and then made some rows without elastic, and then I just finished with a round of elastic, and this creates this puff sleeve. And the same thing I just did with this one, I did for the opening of my dress. So because the neckline is so open, this fold off my shoulders, so to keep it in place, I inserted some elastic into the shoulder, as you can see here. And that way it keeps the dress in place and the dress doesn't fall off my shoulders. And so this is also what I did for the Allegra top. I inserted elastic on some of the rounds on the body, as you can see. So this creates both a more comfortable top that has stretch, but also creates some lovely texture. And the same for the sleeves. Just inserting a round of elastic thread gives some texture and some ruffles, and this will hold the sleeves on my arm. So just make sure that the elastic, when it's flat, so wherever you have to insert it, either subtract 10 centimeters from your crochet. So when my crochet is like this, my elastic has to be 10 centimeters smaller than this, or you can also just take this and just take half of it. It really depends on what kind of style you are doing and what kind of look you want. Just play around with it and figure out what works for you.